this uncertain job market, about one of the best things you can do is shut up.
Hi, and welcome to Yeti at Large. This is a channel focused on making the most out of what you have, no matter where you're at. Thanks for tuning in and helping out.
In this series of working and the workplace and the job market in 2025, we talked about knowing your worth. And today we're going to talk about one of the single best strategies that you can do to improve your position. And that is just simply to shut up. There is usually a profound difference between your stated position description and your department's mission and vision to what is commonly accepted practices. Meaning, forget the rules. This is how we've always done it. There can be a culture around that, and it can be very difficult to navigate. There are dozens of interesting quotes and sayings about holding your tongue, holding your fire, keeping your peace, and really restricting your outputs to the bare minimum to protect your position. One of my favorites was, "It is better to be thought a fool but remain silent than it is to speak and remove all doubt." My grandmother Fern used to say, "You've got two of these but one of those, so you should be doing twice as much listening. Seek first to understand." The most important distinction that we can make comes in 3 or 4 little phases in a common workplace. How many times has some new supervisor or new leader rotated around and said, "I want to come sit with each of the team members and really learn what your job is like and what your needs are"? That's a trap. Every time that's a trap. If you want me, the frontline employee, to teach you, the new manager, how to do my job, that's called consulting, and you pay a consultant. So when somebody comes towards you and starts asking those kinds of questions, that is an excellent time to be very, very careful. Now, you have an opportunity to be honest and share some fundamental stuff about what a typical day looks like, as long as it's consistent with the mission, the vision, and your position description. But be very careful about that and absolutely minimize it. This is not the place to vent or to gossip or to make suggestions on improvements. That's your boss's position to do that. It's their responsibility. They're getting paid to do it. And usually, in my experience, I have found that in those situations, they'll fix it till it's good and broke almost every time. Now, this isn't sour grapes. It's just realistic observations. I wrote down some notes about some methods that I personally use to help me shut my mouth at work. And anyone who knows me for any length of time knows that's one of my biggest challenges. And it's always coming from a place of valid, legitimate contributions and wanting to really help the team. It's coming from a place of merit. But as we all know, merit isn't always the number one driver on what corporations and companies find important. Now remember, in this little series, we're going to keep in mind that our atypical or prototype work environment is working as a staff member in higher education. 2 reasons. 1, it's a typical corporate job, and 2, it is under the most amount of stress in this current job market, working in higher education that's not directly involved as faculty or higher level leadership. So keep that in mind when we talk about some of these things. One of the first and most important things that I do to help me shut up at work is I've always put myself in a position, especially in my little office, where I can see myself. Might be a reflection in a window, might be a small makeup mirror on the desktop. But you will be amazed at how you will guard and monitor your outputs when you see yourself talking. Like, for example, right now, here I am talking and I can see myself in the screen, and it really is distracting to the point where it slows me down, which is a good thing. The other thing that you can do is use the pause. Dan Aykroyd in Saturday Night Live famously made fun of Jimmy Carter in the way that he would use the pause, but it's a brilliant speaking tool. I remember being in public safety and being on the stand, called as a witness to trials where I was either the arresting officer or had wrote a supplementary report. And these attorneys, whom I referred to as counselors, both respectful yet enrages them at the same time, would start trying to get this momentum going and start trying to get you up to speed. And sometimes they would ask 3, 4, 5 questions in a row. And without fail, every time I would use the pause. And I would say, "I'm sorry, counselor. I didn't understand your question. Would you please repeat it?" Many times they wouldn't even remember what they had asked. Other times they would reframe it, and you break the momentum. Use that pause. Always slow down. The last thing that I'll recommend that you do is consciously prep yourself every day when you go to grab that handle of the door to walk into your workspace. Remind yourself of what position you have, what your role is, and where you can best support the mission and vision of the organization. And in that spirit, wait to be asked a specific question. Don't volunteer any information. It's not that you're withholding. You have a lot to share. You have better perspective than just about anybody on this task or this issue. But it's not until someone says, "What do you think?" that you can rephrase that and ask some clarifying questions to make sure that you understand specifically what item of benefit that you can contribute. So, use a reflection or a mirror to see yourself. Use the pause. Wait to be asked. In our example of higher ed, I'll never forget, it was the most outrageous thing I'd ever seen. My little department and my little position had a one-sentence policy describing its requested contributions. It was to publish appointments and meet with students. One sentence. I dare you to go look in the policies in your organization and see how many policies govern what it is you do for a living. When you read the job description, it was quite simple. It was right along those lines. Yet, here I was immersed in a culture of people that were insistent on trying to expand that, to gather authority that didn't belong to them, to overstep their boundaries, all well-intentioned and well-meaning, but not what the organization was seeking. I recently found a great channel called Laugh Lines and Life Lessons. She just published a video called "The Secret Your Boss Hopes You Never Find Out." Please, when you're done watching all of my videos a dozen times, telling all your friends, and subscribing and liking, would you go to her channel and watch that video? I think it's absolutely spot on for a lot of what we're talking about. It's obviously coming from a little different perspective, but I find a lot of value in what she is sharing and highly recommend that channel. Under that toxicity portion of today's video, we talk about that work environment, and there's no shortage of inputs and hundreds of even recent comments about what it's like in a toxic work environment. I just want to share how important it is for you to choose your contributions, your actions, your reactions to the inputs that you receive from a perspective of the philosopher Jung. You need to act and react based on your values, not the situation. That goes back to that before you walk through the front door, give yourself a little pep talk and remind yourself, I'm here because of my values, and I am here because of what I get from this transaction. I will not be dragged into an interaction or altercation based on reacting to a situation. I will always act based on my values and my ethics. It kind of goes along the lines of Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning, where he said the last of the great human freedoms is man's ability to react to any given situation. Strong recommend for a read. Many times that you'll find that the more you discipline yourself, the more that you hold back your contributions and really measure your language and restrict your outputs, the more attention you may get from those toxic work members. You need to be very careful and recognize you're not doing this to be obstinate. You're just being very careful, very low-key, and only contributing where it's beneficial for everybody, putting yourself absolutely first. It's kind of that gray man or that gray rock theory, but at work. It's a smart way to navigate a work environment in 2025. So addressing some simple ways to deal with the toxicity at work. Look at that habituation. How many times do you respond outside of work hours? You check your email from home? Do you participate in things that aren't necessarily your wheelhouse? Habituation. Do they slowly, with incrementalism, drag you into a culture and a series of behaviors that aren't good for you? Those are great questions to ask. And one of the best ways that you can see that kind of stuff, again, goes to being very quiet and shutting your mouth. Now, I've struggled with this my whole life. Half the reason I'm making this video is maybe to remind myself of how important and how powerful this one little act can be. We talk about choosing our reactions, our actions to any given stimulus. That's all well and good in a controlled environment. I've been very honest on this channel in the past that I pulled a lot of personal stress out of public safety, out of law enforcement, and I carry it with me today. We've done a lot of hard work to try to unpack some of that, have some of that post-traumatic growth. That work will continue for a long time. I have discovered it's those sudden, unanticipated altercations or engagements that I don't do well in. You may not either. I will tell you though, one of the single best things you can do is ask someone to stop, just for a moment even, just to gather yourself, to get over the shock of having somebody appear in your doorway who's very animated, very excited, very wound up, if you will, wanting to have a spontaneous, moment-interrupting interaction with you that you're not going to react well to. I've had it happen twice to me in the last year. Both times, I was able to say, stop. Didn't go well the second time. It went great the first time. First time I asked for a formal communication at the Human Resources office where the three of us could sit down and then have that constructive conversation discussing why that behavior trespassed over something very important to me, something also protected in Human Resources policy. The second time it happened, it was with a supervisor. You can imagine how that went. Now, I still stuck to my values, my rationale. I didn't surrender anything, even though the output of that wasn't as positive as I was like. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you this isn't the strongest video I've ever made, but it does come from a sincere place. If you've stuck around this long, then you're searching for tools and mechanisms to make you stronger and better at work. No doubt that this video may seem more like a series of ramblings, not my strongest content ever, but it does come from a sincere place. And I wish you very well. If you've made it this far into this video, it's because you're likely looking for a common voice, some mutual perspective. I really recommend you continue that work. Please do everything you can to safeguard your scarce and precious resources. That comes from your energy. That means limiting your outputs. Do the work. Be the best person at your position possible. But don't do anything unnecessary, unrequested, or unasked for. And watch those traps and pitfalls. They're out there everywhere. And in this job market, you can't be too careful. This is the second in our series of videos starting with Know Your Worth. This is Shut Your Mouth, or Toxicity and Habituation. After this, we're going to go into the sidestep, a great little story about a tool they use against you, asking what's your plan A, and then what's your plan B, C, and D, because you'd better have them. We'll talk about courage versus cowardice, and courage is required in every job and every workplace. Humble, confident, timeless courage. We'll talk about C to the S plus B squared equals done deal. And then finally we'll close on how you can only add value. You'll never overcome objections. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this gives you some form of benefit because it's highly cathartic to me. And if for no other reason, that makes it good. Yeti at large.